Back in 2021 I was a complete novice. I just got my motorcycle license, I had never been off-road, and I didn't even own a scooter as a kid. So I was really starting from zero. Naturally I thought the Tenere 700 would be the perfect choice. A middleweight adventure bike that looks amazing. It was my dream bike. I want to be that rider that did wheelies in remote places and riding through epic landscapes, just like in the commercials. I had heard it was easier on a smaller bike, but I thought, how much difference does 40 or 50 kilos actually make? I thought I would be able to lift it every time I drop it, so I bought it. But the moment I left the pavement, reality hit hard. It felt like a 350 kilo monster and I had no idea what I was doing. So I dropped it so many times that I actually stopped counting. In this video I will share from someone that actually did this typical mistake. I learned the hard way, so you don't have to. And also I want to start a real discussion on what makes a good first adventure bike. It will of course be different depending on your experiences on motorcycles, but I want to share my experience on the Tenere 700 when I was a complete beginner, and hopefully it can help someone that was in the same shoes as I was. By the way, my name is Johan and welcome to the channel if you're new here. I talk about motorcycles here in my garage, as you can see, and I take them out on real adventures also. So if that sounds like your thing, hit subscribe because it really helps me a lot and it doesn't cost a thing for you. Alright, let's talk about what the T7 felt like for a beginner. I dreamed of going to remote places and ride as much off-road to those places as possible. And I had watched everything I could on YouTube, so I thought I want to try this out for myself. When I first went off-road, it was so exciting. It was everything I have dreamed of, but at the same time I found myself in places that was a bit too hefty for me and my skill level. Those situations were less than ideal. I dropped the bike in downhill, so I struggled to lift it back up. And also, when a deer jumped out in front of me, I grabbed the front brake too hard and I almost fell. So I didn't even know how to brake properly off-road. When I was out on these adventures, the bike felt more and more intimidating for me after all those small incidents. And when you're feeling a bit uncomfortable, you tense up even more and it becomes even worse. The size when you just stand next to the bike is that it's a substantial bike. It's not small by any means. And it's not light either. Even though I think it's light and nimble now, that's not the words I would describe the bike as when I was a beginner. That height and weight does a huge difference. What makes you comfortable and confident off-road. So those kilos really matter. Trying to improve on a big adventure bike when you have no experience whatsoever is like a bit of self-punishment. It's much harder and it will take a long time for you, and you will probably fall down a lot, as I did. Of course this also depends on your ambition levels. Of course you can just cruise on gravel roads or tarmac and so on, but if you want to become better off-road and ride more frisky or aggressive, it's much easier to learn on a smaller bike. And as you've probably heard, the T7 tips into corners real nice, but if you're off-road and you lose your balance, it becomes quite fast that you can't hold up the bike because the weight is quite high. So that's not the ideal for a beginner either. So is it only bad things about getting a T7 as a beginner? No. I mean, the motor is so predictable and very linear power. So it's not like with some bike you get all of the power over a certain RPM, because this bike it's a tractor off-road and it's very predictable and very easy to ride off-road. And the good thing about the T7 also, it's very reliable and it can really take a beating. And since it's so narrow, the only thing that will hit the ground most of the time is the bark busters. That's how it has been for me, at least. Those take every hit basically. And there's also this quote: you can grow into the bike, not out of it. And that's really true for the T7. But also, why make it harder for yourself than it has to be? I mean, it's not easy to ride off-road, and on the T7 it's harder than it is on a smaller bike. So, what did I wish I knew when starting out? And that is, training is the only way to get better. And when I say training, I really mean real training, like watching online courses, like with Chris Birch or someone, and actually go out in the woods and do those drills. because when I started out, I was just going out with my mates on adventure rides. We had a really fun time, but I didn't get better. And the only way to get better is actually to do drills and watch online courses, or watch YouTube for that matter, and watch the pros and how they do it. I think many are like I was, just going out on those adventure rides with the mates and having a fun time, but always maybe riding at the limit of their capacity. And there's where the accidents happen. So I really think everyone should focus also on like the training part of this amazing sport. But my solution back in the day when I had my first T7 was that I sold the T7 and I got the Husky 701, a dual sport bike, and it was a really good choice. I mean, it was a much lighter bike and so much easier to learn on. I also bought the Yamaha VR250F, like an enduro bike, but it was also road legal. So I rode that in the woods near my house, and I learned a lot, and I also took that to some enduro tracks and the motocross tracks. So I learned a lot just doing that also. Now looking back, I'm so glad that I sold my first T7. I got those lighter bikes, because it's so much easier to learn on a smaller bike. It's the weight difference, of course, and you get more confident, and when you tip it over, it's just easier to lift it up again, and you don't tip it as often because it's lighter. So there's a lot of benefits going to a lighter bike. And yeah, maybe you're wondering, this is not the same T7 as I bought in 2021. This is a T7 I bought now in 2025, and this is a T7 Extreme. And it feels like a new bike compared to the one I had before, even though it's basically the same bike. And as I said before, now I think it's a playful machine that feels light and nimble, but that's not the words I would have described it back in 2021. So what is the right adventure bike? And that depends entirely on how you're going to use it. And you have to be honest with yourself about that. Because if you're just going to cruise on gravel roads or tarmac and so on, a big adventure bike will be a perfect choice. And maybe not still the easiest to learn on going off-road, but still manageable. But if you want to go a bit more aggressive and really want to learn how to ride off-road, a big adventure bike will be so much harder to learn on. And maybe it sounds like I'm a good rider now. I'm not. I'm just an amateur trying to have fun and improve. But it's so much easier to learn on a lighter bike that I want to make this video. So if you want to push the limits a bit more and really learn how to ride off-road, I would suggest, and many others have said it before me, to get a dual sport or some lighter bike. And it makes it so much easier to learn how to ride properly off-road. That market is also growing fast. I mean, we have the KTM 390R, and we have the new Kawasaki KLE 500, I think it's called, and the CRF 300 from Honda. And of course, we also have the Husky 701 that I had, and the KTM 690, and also the AGP PR7. That looks like a really great machine for those that wants a bit more like an adventure bike, but still light. So yeah, we have a lot of bikes in that market that wasn't available when I started out. And there's this saying, get your dream bike as your second or third bike. And that really hits home for me, and is very true on my journey in this world of adventure motorcycles. But if you are a beginner and really want the Tenere 700 or another middleweight adventure bike that you have really dreamt of and you really want it, I would suggest go for it. But start small and don't go for those epic adventure rides just yet. Just do some practice, start small and build your confidence. And of course, most important of all, just have fun. That's what it's all about. How was the journey for you guys? I really want to know what bikes you started out on and how the journey was for you. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching today, and I hope it helped someone, or at least was somewhat interesting to hear about. I will see you soon again. Bye bye.